So I'm doing some pre-installation configuration and testing of equipment, and I thought it might be a cool chance to kind of run through the ins and outs, literally, of an audio-video receiver. Figured we'd take a look at the jack panel on the back and I'd run through what everything is. So this is the Denon AVRX2300. It's like a mid-level, lower mid-level model for them. It retails for about $800. Let's take a look at the back of it. So, as you probably know, an audio-video receiver is kind of the central hub for the whole entertainment system. So you can see it's got a lot going on in the back of it, and honestly, being that this is kind of closer to an entry-level model, it's missing some connections that you might see on some higher performance, more featured units. But even so, it's a lot of inputs, a lot of outputs, lots of places to connect stuff. So I figured we'd run through it. An AV receiver has really two big functions. The first is everything runs into it, and it's responsible for switching between different sources like your cable box or your game console, music sources and things like that, and it routes the video to the display, to the television or the projector, and the sound through the speakers that are connected to it. So it's pretty much a lot of inputs and a couple of outputs and a few other kinds of connections. So you can see here along the bottom are the amplified outputs for all the speakers that you're going to connect to it for a surround sound system. And you might not even use all of these connections depending on your own configuration, but they're all down there and labeled. And some of them can even be configured to send music or audio to another zone. Like you might have a pair of speakers in the kitchen, for instance, and you want to listen to music through them. You can, with most of these receivers, you can connect a pair of speakers and be able to play it, anything that's connected to this receiver, through those speakers in the kitchen or in whatever zone you might have. So those are the speaker connections that are amplified, and then you have a whole bunch of inputs and a few outputs. So the most common ones that you'll use with modern equipment are the HDMI connections. You can see it's got 7 different inputs for various sources you might hook into it, like your cable box or a Blu-ray player, game console. And just because they're labeled this way doesn't mean that you have to hook them into those jacks. They're just kind of pre-configured labels for selecting inputs, but you can actually rename those for other things and use them for whatever HDMI device you want. But so HDMI does both picture and sound. So you connect your cable box, for instance, there, and other devices, and then it outputs through the HDMI output to your television, so the picture gets to your TV or your projector. And one thing that's kind of cool, we've been using a lot more these days, the ARC, or audio return channel feature of HDMI, allows not only picture to pass out of this to the television to display, but it allows sound to come back from the television to play through the surround sound system. You might use that for to get sound from the built-in TV apps like Netflix and Amazon and such. It can send the sound back over the HDMI cable to play through the surround sound system, so that's pretty cool. It also has a few digital audio only inputs over here, a couple of optical connections. Optical is another common way to get sound back from a television, but you might also see it on older DVD players and game consoles. And then that is a digital coaxial connection, just kind of another method of the same thing, digital audio. So this is for sound only. So connect your source to that, and it plays the sound through the speakers. The speakers are the outputs. Here is a whole big section of analog video inputs. These are composite video, which is a very old video technology. You probably won't use that, but you might have an old game console or old camera system or something like that that you could connect into there. And then it has an output for composite video. These are component video inputs, what we were used to using before HDMI, just for picture. Maybe an old DVD player or game system, hook into that, and then it has a composite or component video output that you can send to your display. Now, one kind of cool feature that most receivers have these days, at least mid-level and up, they can actually take devices that use these older technologies. You hook them into here or here, and then it'll transcode it and pass it up through the HDMI connection to the display. So that way you don't have to have multiple outputs from every kind of video connection that goes to your display. It just passes them all out through the HDMI, which is pretty sweet. These are analog audio only inputs. So this is pretty old technology, but we still use it in some cases. Like the Echo Dot, the only physical audio output it has is a stereo analog connection, so we'll be hooking an Echo Dot into one of these inputs here, and it outputs the sound through the speakers. So it has 4 inputs for 4 different sources for that. This one also has a set of Zone 2 analog pre-outs. So again, like the scenario where you want to have music somewhere else in the house, if you have a separate amplifier with speakers connected to it, you would hook up a set of cables from here to that amplifier, and then that would allow you to play whatever's the sound from whatever's connected into this receiver through the music system. And then these are the subwoofer outputs. Subwoofers almost always have their own built-in amplifier, so even though they are a speaker, they don't get connected to the powered speaker outputs. You just need a signal cable that goes from here to the subwoofer's internal amplifier, and then it amplifies it and plays the sound. So that's why the subwoofer connections look the way they do. And then there are a couple of other non-signal cables or connections, like the network connection, for instance, so that the receiver can be on the network and be connected to the internet. There are a lot of reasons that you might want to do that. One of them is that these things come with their own built-in music sources, like Pandora and Sirius XM and internet radio, that you can play right from the receiver. So it needs that network connection. That's the best way to get it connected to your network, is through that Ethernet hardline connection. Also, it can get firmware updates to make sure that it operates reliably and is up to date, and you can also do some control of the unit through network. So if you have a nice control system, the remote might be able to talk to the receiver right through the network or over the network. If you don't have a hardwired connection available, it has these antennas on each side where that allows it to join the network over Wi-Fi. That they also serve as Bluetooth antennas, so you can stream directly from a mobile device or tablet or something. And then we also have these remote control input and output. That's just another way for a control system, a universal remote or programmable remote, to talk to this. So instead of flashing the front of it to send the commands there, you might just hook up a cable directly into the back. Then there's the RS-232 control connection. RS-232 is just a more sophisticated control method. Allows you not only to talk to the receiver and tell it what to do, but you can ask the receiver questions and get information back, like what volume level is it at, and it'll return an answer, or what input is currently selected, is zone 2 on or off, and you can program the control system to do things based on that information that you get back. So that's just a more reliable or sophisticated control connection. And then lastly, we have the tuner connections here for antennas. So that's just FM antenna connection and AM antenna connection. Almost nobody ever uses those anymore, because you can get almost all the radio stations and thousands of more through the internet. So it's not real common to use the tuner connections anymore. But that's pretty much it. So lots of different places to hook stuff up. A lot of them you won't even use, but hopefully now you have a better understanding of what each of them does. Thanks for watching.